Yeah, so technical director's role is always best described as sort of looking after the interests of the club in a medium to long term. You know, my job is not at 12:30 today, you know, tactical systems or anything like that. You know, that's Graham's job. He's the head coach in order to do that. So there's 6 things that come into me. So there's men's first team, women's first team, player recruitment, the academy, medical and sports science, and the player loan department. So all of those are sort of you know, some medium to long-term things such as medical, such as player loans, such as the academy, in order to try and make sure, recruitment of course as well, in order to try and make sure that the club is sustainable. We spend our money wisely, we open up pathways for young players to come through the system, and that's one of the things that was really important to Brian.
Hello everyone, welcome once again to United and Everything Football Podcast. It's great to come your way every single time. Between the last recording and now, a lot of issues have popped up regarding who is going to be the director of football at Manchester United. Well, now it is emerging that a single candidate in the name of Dan Ashworth has been, penciled to take over the role of director of football or sporting director or technical director or whatever name you give to it has emerged. So it's Dan Ashworth and no one else according to Ineos. Now, so I'm here once again with Kwame Siako and also another special guest. When I come back from this break, I'm going to introduce my special guest. But Kwame, how have you been? It's been great for us since the start of the year, 2024.
2024 came with a lot of blessings. We have been on a tear now. I think 5 wins and 6 no defeats yet. It's been good, and we are all feeling good.
Well, that's great. So we are going for a quick break. When we come back, we'll delve straight into the issues on the director of football. What is it in football now? What is it relevance in modern day football? We'll just dive deep into that, and then we'll look at all the other issues that we've lined up for you here on United and Everything Football. As usual, remember to hit the subscribe button and hit the notification bell. So important to us if this is your first time watching this channel. We'll be right back after this. All right, thank you very much and welcome back to United and Everything Football Podcast. Today we are joined once again by our brother, always been with us here on this podcast, Nathan Obodaikwao. Always great to have you, Nathan. Nathan, how are you doing?
I'm all right. How are you guys doing? Thank you for having me.
I'm doing very well, Kwame.
Same here.
All right, Nathan, a lot has been happening, right? Over the last couple of hours, over the last couple of days, there's the issue of director of football. I mean, it's been brewing for quite some time now, director of football, and the whole term has been around for quite some time. Other clubs have been using it. It was introduced to United not too long ago, some few years ago, where we had a man called John Murtock currently occupying that position. But I don't know, what's this whole concept about director of football and why has it become so important in the modern game now?
Well, the idea of a director of football, some people call it sporting director, whatever, some people call it technical, whatever it is. It's important because most football clubs run on a vision, on a grand plan, a long-term plan. Now, you need somebody to understand that plan, and based on that plan, the person will supervise the various arms and legs of a club. So you have somebody supervising recruitment, somebody supervising nutrition, somebody supervising data, somebody supervising performance, somebody supervising loans, women's teams, youth teams, academies, that kind of thing. Now, it is to ensure that that vision runs through. So if it is a certain style of play, a certain way of doing things, it runs through from top to bottom. Everybody is aligned, irrespective of what you're doing. So if you are the data person, you think about your work in line with that grand plan, that philosophy. If you are the loans person, the same. If you are the recruitment person, you work in that context. Now, that context is determined, is decided, is supervised by a director of football. Some people call a sporting director. In the last, 10, 15, 20 years, if you like, it's become very common. Teams like Tottenham Hotspur had Damian Komoli and others. Liverpool do have theirs. Arsenal have had people in similar positions with different names. But the bottom line, Manchester City, for example, Barcelona, all these other clubs, the bottom line is there is somebody who sets out the vision. There is somebody who lays out a grand plan and tries to get everybody to follow that grand plan, irrespective of where you are on the club or organogram or your position or role. So really in summary, that's what the sporting director is there for, just to guide what everybody does in the club in a certain direction or per a certain plan or per a certain objective.
All right, Kwame, that's a very elaborate explanation of where director of football is. If you go into the history of United, it's a very alien concept until, about 3 or 4 years ago. When Alex Ferguson was there, he was everything at the club. He was the director of football. He was the chief scout himself. He had his brother Martin being his personal chief scout, who goes around to scout players for him, aside the global scouts that they had. But it looks as if Ineos has its own plan. They want to do away with the man we know, John Methog, who was promoted from within the ranks at some point to become the sporting director. We knew that high on the agenda, aside the CEO for Ineos, has been the man to drive the recruitment, given how things have been over the last 10 years. Now the name has been narrowed down to the man Dan Ashworth. Kwame, who is Dan Ashworth?
Dan Ashworth. That's a good question. You have to go all the way back to the 2000s to find out when this man got involved in football in the first place. So I think he started in the early 2000s with lowly Peterborough and then Cambridge United. But then where he really rose to prominence was, I think, West Bromwich Albion in 2004 in the Championship. He helped them to promotion, and then they stayed in the league for quite some time, doing well in the league, actually, because West Brom, as we've always known them, have always been a yo-yo team. But then during his time at West Bromwich Albion, I think they stayed in the league and then finished in very respectable positions. But where he actually gets all his props for is when St. George's Park was built. St. George's Park, where all the English football teams, all 23 of them, they decide that they're going to build a heaven for their national teams and build something from there. That was in 2012, and then they needed people with great expertise to be able to guide them with their vision. That's where this man actually, stood up. He was appointed then, I think, as the head of elite development for their junior teams, mainly for their junior teams, to see them, a lot of their players run through from their junior teams all the way to senior level. And it's gave birth to a huge period of success in English football history. One would argue that ever since St. George's Park was established, England have had their most successful period ever since, irrespective of the fact that they've not really come up with the main thing, the holy grail, that is, be it a World Cup or European Championships. They are competing ever seriously compared to any other period in their past. They won under 17 World Cup, under 20 World Cup, loads of Lutton tournaments. They've been to the World Cup semi-final. They've been to the Euros finals. They've been up there consistently. And it was the brain behind all this. Many people attribute it to the brilliance of Dan Ashworth. From there, I think he moved to where we actually heard of him for the very first time, most of us, me inclusive. That is Brighton. He did wonders there with their recruitment strategy, knowing how lowly Brighton was and how they had to compete with the elite clubs, signing unknown players like the likes of Caicedo and Cucurella from Spain, and players from very lowly teams, but then make players who went on to make loads of money for Brighton. And from there, he was poached by the new rich boys in town, Newcastle United. The Saudis came in town and they poached one of the very best, Dan Ashworth, to their club. And since then, we also what happened, immediate impact with their recruitment, with everything. They went all the way to qualify for the Champions League. And they made noise in the Champions League. They didn't just go there to, take part. They actually competed. Mm-hmm. So why are we going in for this man? That's where some of us are a bit skeptical with the fact that there was a relationship between him and the likes of Sir David Brosford and our new part owner from Ineos, Sir Jimmy Ratcliffe. They have a personal relationship beyond the sport, so it's easy for them to turn to the man they know. But the man they know is no slouch. He's actually very competent in his role. He's actually been very successful everywhere he goes. He's not your flamboyant name. He's not that big name. Fans are always mentioning the likes of Paul Micheal and then the huge names. But
Monkey and all that.
Monkey, yeah. Monkey and the likes, yeah. But then I think what they've done here is put personal relationship aside. The man knows his job. He knows his stuff. If you speak to a lot of people in England, they'll tell you he's probably the best sporting director in English football history. Some people have mentioned that. So I don't mind where they get these people from. All that matters to me is that they're getting the best in class. Umar Barada as our CEO from our rivals. It doesn't even matter whether they come from our rivals. We are getting people from City, the likes of Newcastle. Probably there's noise that we could be hiring a former Liverpool sporting director in Julian Ward. There's noise going around. I don't know. It's not so solid. But then it tells you that it doesn't really matter where these people come from. So far as they are the best in class, Ineos is ready to go for them to be able to, launch a new period of success for our football club.
All right. Nathan, your thoughts on Dan Ashworth, what you've gathered around, and is he fit for purpose or could we have done better?
Wow. Just looking at the body of work he's put together, you can't argue against that and say he cannot do the job at Manchester United. Manchester United are in dire need of somebody who can guide things. And if you look at, like I said, Dan Ashworth's body of work, what he's done, it's almost very logical that from England to Brighton to Newcastle, he would want to try something bigger. And if he comes in, if he turns the ship around and United starts to become a hit once again, then he can look at himself and say, wow, I've progressed, almost exponentially from England to Brighton to Newcastle, next level Man United. He turns the club around. He's going to be an instant hit. And for him personally, it will be great. He can put that on his CV and know that he's done probably one of the biggest jobs in world football. So I will not argue greatly against his body of work. It looks like he understands what it is that must be done at a club, looking at the needs of the club. The challenge, though, is that when I think about people like that and they walk into a structure like Manchester United, I kind of worry whether or not they will have the freedom to work, the freedom to properly execute without people looking over their work, without people second-guessing all the things they will do, without second-guessing their own effort, really. That's my only concern. But of course, with Ineos now officially getting 25% of the club, meaning that they have sporting control, I hope that he will get the freedom he needs to work, because to succeed in that role, you do need freedom, but most importantly, you need to understand what the club needs. And I hope he understands what Manchester United needs at this point. And I hope most importantly, he and Erik ten Hag, for now, and whoever the manager is later, if there is a change, they will be on the same page. Because the trick to the success of a sporting director is that he and the manager or coach are always on the same page. They are always saying the same things. They are thinking about the same things. And in all they do, they are in sync and they communicate and they are always in line. That's the most important thing. So I just hope, should that appointment be made, I just hope it will not be one where Dan Ashworth is thinking about doing things differently and Erik ten Hag is looking at things differently and there's a conflict over, I want this player, no, I want that player, and all of that. What must be put in stone, what must be cast in stone is that Manchester United need to have one direction running through from top to bottom. There needs to be a uniformity of thought, clarity of ideas, so that it fits into everything. Now, if that exists, then the club can make the right purchases, and then things on the pitch will start to improve. So for me, that's the most important thing. If he and the manager will be in sync and they'll work from the same hymn sheet, they'll sing from the same hymn sheet, I think we're in goodness. But you can't argue against Dan Ashworth's body of work. You can't look at it and say, this man cannot do the work at Man United. He's done well to get here. You only hope that he will continue to succeed should he get the chance to work at Manchester United.
So last on Dan Ashworth before we move to other things. Now, you look at Omar Barada, you look at Dan Ashworth. Where do you think Ineos is driving? Where do you think they are driving to? What are they driving at?
The way I see it, they've appointed very competent people, or they plan to appoint very competent people, but not people who are self-actualized, not people who have reached the peak of their powers, people who are still motivated to do more. The reason why I say this is Omar Barada was not the big boss at City.
Yeah.
I think he was the chief operations officer at City, COO.
Yeah.
He wasn't the big boss. He wasn't making the final decisions. But then he was in a successful system and he contributed heavily to a successful system. What you are doing is you are putting this man into a bigger role at a bigger club.
Mm-hmm.
And he would be motivated to even do more. It's the same with Dan Ashworth. He's been in and around. He's been in and around England, Brighton, Newcastle. None of them compare to the might that is Manchester United.
Yeah.
So he also comes into the job thinking, you know what, this is actually the pinnacle of his career. He cannot fail, because once you fail at that level, it sort of wipes away everything you've done in the past. In the eyes of fans, in the eyes of almost everybody, you'll be seen as a failure. Nobody will look back at your time at Newcastle United, at Brighton, or you being the CEO at City and go like, no. We've been saying for weeks now, Manchester United is a graveyard for a lot of people, be it people in the top hierarchy or be it players. If these people are able to change this notion, it's a huge feather in their cap. So I think that's what Ineos is going with. People who are very good, but then haven't reached the top yet and want to reach the top.
All right. So it looks as if that people with the potential to, hit the height has become some sort of a motive, or to help them get the motivation to be able to reach the highest potential, or the highest of their potential, are the people that Ineos is going in for. Well, we'll see how that pans out, Dan Ashworth. So it's a developing story. So where it stands at the moment is that United have made a firm approach to Dan Ashworth. Now, Ashworth has communicated to Newcastle that he intends to move to Manchester United. What is going to happen is that United will have to make a formal approach to Newcastle because Ashworth is contracted to them. I would have to pay a fine, a compensation, sorry, not a fine, a compensation. Yeah. And we are hearing is hovering around 6 million. However, he's supposed to serve a 1-year gardening leave. United will have to navigate that to cut it short so they can get their man latest in the summer to be able to, come work for them. So if you remember, the same thing happened to Ashworth when he was moving from Brighton to Newcastle. They made it harder for Newcastle to poach him. He's a man who is very hard to poach. So clearly it tells you this level. If we deduce
it just tells you that he is a very sought-after gentleman.
Perhaps.
And the boardrooms of football clubs want to have him around to guide whatever it is they do.
Well,
and for him, I can understand if Manchester United comes calling. I don't know how many people will look at Manchester United in the face when they tell you, come to Man United and come and be sporting director. I don't know how many people will turn that down, and you can understand all these dynamics and everything. But like I said, it's a developing situation. Let's wait and see what happens.
Well,
but at least this bit of information and that concerning Omar Barada just tells you a bit about what the people at Ineos are planning to do. At least they want to ensure that the sporting side or the footballing side of things will work in a certain way, to work in a way that's similar to the good things that have happened to other clubs. So we wait to see. Fingers crossed it should work out, and woe unto our enemies if all of these things come together. The good times will be back.
Woe unto our enemies.
We'll be back.
It will be fire.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much,
hate us
guys.
even more.
Anyway, all right. Let's switch quickly our attention to the game we have over the weekend against Lutton Town. So later, I'll start with you. Strangely, we've not lost a game so far in the year 2024. Strangely, given how things panned out from August to December 2023, I want to ask you, are we turning the corner?
I don't want to say yes and sound like Ghana's finance minister. But look, sorry. So I guess all the news about reshuffling and everything is still fresh in my mind. That's the curse of being a news reporter. The news never leaves your head. Look, things have looked great in 2024. Things will have to keep looking like this if Champions League football will come back to Man United. I've been happy with the results. I have been surprised by some, especially the Aston Villa one. I did not see how Man United were able to get anything from that game, but they did. And now they have to go to Luton, who themselves are in a very interesting place. I saw them beat Brighton, and they've played some very good football. And Kenilworth Road will be a tough place. And I think Man United are beginning to look good and play well and get results. Like I said, Villa was a test they passed. Wolves was a crazy test. They came out of it on the right side. They beat West Ham 3-0, which surprises me because I thought West Ham would give it a better go, but United seem to have withered that quite well. Yeah. So it will be tough. But like we've seen, winning is a good habit. Yeah. And you want to keep doing those good things. The team is unbeaten. They've won games. They'll think about the Luton game and say, let's go add more points because you never know what will happen to Villa or Spurs or any of these teams that are above us. Yeah. So yes, it will be a very interesting time. Luton will be pumped. They'll be up for it, like a lot of these clubs when Man United come visiting. But United will have to look at all the things they've done in 2024 and believe that, look, they can go out there, play some great football, ride the storm when need be, get 3 points and get out of there and see what happens. So, yes, I will not say we've turned the corner because there are still some tricky games to play. But things are looking up and they will have to keep looking that way even as we head to Luton this weekend.
All right. Kwame, two things. We had players coming back, but Bleacher has gone back. Shaw, some way, somehow, couldn't stand the heat and he had to go back to the treatment room. Well, we heard it was precautionary, but that's the first thing. Now we are going to Luton. They've given teams a hell of a time at their home grounds. Arsenal had to struggle to get a win. City had to struggle to get a win. Liverpool went there, drew. Tottenham had to beat them by a lone goal. It looks like a very difficult ground, not a ground to underestimate. Although they've lost some games to some teams, it looks like they give the top half teams a very tough time anytime they go there. What should we expect?
Let me talk about the revolving door first of our injuries. It's very unfortunate because it's a lot of us have been gave Eric Ten Hag a lot of stick for how we played in the first half of the season, despite the fact that we had a mountain of injuries. Yeah. And he kept saying, when the players come back, you would see a huge difference. When the players came back, we saw a huge difference. We continue to see a huge difference. So it gives a lot of, to the fact that he was right in actually making that excuse. Unfortunately, these players just come onto the pitch in a couple of games and they seem to be going back. But then I think we are riding, like Nathan said, winning is a drug. We are going to ride on the fact that we've gone on a streak of games where we've won almost all. And despite the fact that Luton have given teams a hell of a time on their grounds, at the end of the day, they still lose those games.
Yeah.
They still end up losing those games. They even lost to Chelsea, I think, a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
It was also a close game just like that. We don't expect any easy games for Man United now. We've not had easy games throughout the entire season. Don't expect us to walk in there and have a comfy encounter. But what I do expect is by the end of the day, like we've done over the last couple of weeks, digging it out at Wolves, digging it out at Aston Villa, we would go in there, expect a tough game, but at the end of the day, I think we'll still come up trumps with the victory. We need to keep this winning machine going.
Nathan, let me ask you this. You expect us to win. Nathan, let me ask you this before I get to the last thing I would like us to look at. Erik ten Hag, what do you think he's doing differently, aside the players coming in, the injury situation improving? What do you think he's doing differently for us to get results at this point in time?
I think he's been flexible. I think after 5.5 to 6 months of being stubborn, I think he's realized that, maybe just playing to the strengths of these guys is really what will get me the results. I know that as a Dutch manager, his ultimate dream is to see this team play some high-level football that he would like. But when you look at the profiles of these players and what they can do, he's had to bend slightly. And I think that bending slightly to suit the characteristics of these players, that's what has helped. Of course, the difference between last season and this season, and the fact that I think he's closer to his dream type of football than last season, where the team played almost on the break all the time, is a player like Kobbie Mainoo. He gives him a certain level of control in midfield he would have wanted from day one. Yeah. And I think the player himself is executing so well that it allows Man United to have some control of the ball. The ball can get to midfield. The ball can be passed around. There's a bit of a tempo to it. And you and I were talking about the Villa game, and you were telling me about the passing sequences. I saw the game, I think the day we spoke about, I watched it back. And it's true, some of the passing sequences really looked very convincing, quite brave on the ball, trying to play through the press. And so it's great. But I think that Erik ten Hag also had to admit that there are some of these players who cannot do the things I want them to do. So it's better I play to their strengths. And I'll give you an example. Look at how he's deployed Scott McTominay. Yes, it's true he's been scoring the goals, but I think McTominay's positioning for that goal against Villa tells me everything I need to know about how Ten Hag thinks of McTominay and what he's finally decided about Scott McTominay. Typically, McTominay would be crashing the box, running into the box, but the cross found him in the box together with the other attacking threat that Man United had. Yeah. And I think for me, that's the perfect exemplification of the manager who has seen that this particular player cannot do anything better than run up and down, get him something into the box, and he'll try and find a goal. And I think Erik ten Hag, once he's understood that, I think it reduces his headache by a huge percentage. Just throw the gentleman in that area. Yeah. Just get the ball to him. A good cross, a good pass, and he'll score. But like I said, the difference really just lies in the fact that some players are available. Others are coming back. But the discovery of a player like Kobbie Mainoo allows Ten Hag to play a bit of the controlling football he would like. And for me, I think that's the difference when I look at last season and this season. Not a lot of Eriksen has been around, but the fact that Kobbie Mainoo is around and is playing well provides Erik ten Hag at least the ability to say that all this pursuit of Frankie de Jong beforehand, I won't say it was pointless, but at least now he has somebody who can hold the gap whilst he thinks of what to do, whether or not he still needs another player who's more experienced, or Kobbie Mainoo is the future and he'll prep him for the bigger assignments ahead.
Well, okay, that's it on Erik ten Hag from Nathan Kwao. Kwame, as for Kwame, he shared a lot on the guy already.
But Kwame is right. We were right to give Erik ten Hag stick in the first half of the season. And if he's getting things right, we have to credit him that
absolutely. Absolutely. Fair. All right. So that's it on the game against Lutton Town. We hope that we'll be coming here once again with smiles on our face, celebrating another win and not another difficult period through a loss or a draw or anything, because at this point in time, a draw doesn't help our case against teams like Lutton Town. So we'll be looking forward to that game. But we are ending with this. We put up a poll on our Twitter handle or X handle at Man United Ball, because there's been news that we'll be going in for some players. There's news of us going in for Pedro Neto or Micheal Olise. These two talented players have have been on United's radar according to news from the tabloids. Now, we put up a poll on which of the two people would like. And guess what? As you can see, a lot of you are going for Pedro Neto. I would want to ask my people here. Nathan, Pedro Neto, Micheal Olise. Quickly, our time is almost done. So let's kill this kick.
Yeah, Pedro Neto for me. Pedro Neto for me.
Irrespective of the injuries and all the other things that he's suffering.
Yes, for me, that's the biggest asterisk. It's the biggest question mark. But you cannot doubt the gentleman's quality. He understands the league, his experience. I think he's sharper than Olise. I think he provides United with the threat that Anthony has never given, and I don't think will ever give. You know. So I just think that Pedro Neto for me. If United had the chance to get both Pedro Neto and Olise, that's fine, but I don't think they will do that, if you ask me. Yeah, one fills in for the other when the other is injured because they are both quite injured. Yeah. But Pedro Neto, for me, the experience, the sharpness, the understanding of the league, I think that is very crucial. And the fact that he's a very, very deadly player to have.
Kwame, I wish you go the opposite way, but I know your mind. Why Pedro Neto?
Oh, yeah. I'm a Pedro Neto guy. But I'll make a case for Olise. That's the twist. The twist is I'll make a case for Olise. And the reason is quite simple. It may not necessarily just come down to who is the better player, but then there's a quota to fill. That is the homegrown quota. The reason why I bring this up is both of them are left-footed right wingers, meaning we are looking to replace somebody in that position. There are two people in that position, like when I talk about with the same attributes. It's Anthony and Mason Greenwood. It's very possible Mason Greenwood may not be coming back to this football club. He is a homegrown player. If we lose any more homegrown players, we still have to fill that quota. And in filling that quota, Micheal Olise comes up trumps compared to Pedro Neto. So that's a factor that we have to consider. It really did come up, especially when Chelsea were looking for somebody to fill that same homegrown quota in that same position. Okay. It came down to Olise once more and Cole Palmer.
Yeah.
They didn't consider Mohamed Kudus because of that factor. A lot of fans don't look at those things, but then I'm just looking at it from that angle that despite the fact that I think Neto is the more talented player, irrespective of his injuries, I've seen him in so many big games tear fullbacks apart. And compared to how long Olise has been in the league and what his body of work, I don't think they match up. But then being an a homegrown player, he's not even English, he's French, but he's homegrown.
Yeah.
Being homegrown, I think that's where, he has a slight advantage when it comes to the recruitment team's choice of who should be a replacement for one of our left-footed wingers. I don't know whether it's going to be Anthony or Greenwood, but then one of them won't be at a football club next season.
All right, thank you so much, guys. It's been fun. It's been great having you two on the podcast today. So if this is your first time, I know you've enjoyed it. So remember to hit the subscribe button and hit the notification bell. We have a lot for you coming. I'll hold on to it. Let me hold on to it. There's a lot coming here on United and Everything Football. Thanks so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much, Nathan Kwao. Thank you very much, Kwame Nchubuesiako, for always joining us. So we'll be back right after the Luton game to give you our thoughts on the game. So please enjoy yourself. Have a nice time, and we'll see you some other time.